It's time now for Perspective. This Friday marks the 46th edition of France's answer to the Oscars, the César. The awards come, of course, after an extremely difficult year for French film, with cinemas nationwide still closed until further notice. It's also the first César ceremony under new leadership, following the mass resignation of the César Academy president and the entire board of governors following outcry at the fact that disgraced filmmaker Roman Polanski was nominated for no fewer than 12 awards last year. My guest today is Véronique Lebris, author of 100 great films by female directors. She's also the editor-in-chief of the woman-centric site cinewoman.fr. Thank you so much for coming on to speak to us today on France 24. Now, this has been a unique year for cinema. What are you expecting from tonight's awards?
I expect that we can see that cinema is not just made by men, for example, and that the French cinema could make a big place and a big place to female, just to recognize the way what they bring to the cinema. I think it's a time to do that.
Now, the Academy is now headed up by a woman. What, if anything, has changed over the past year?
I'm not sure that the Academy has changed. The Academy have changed because it changed everything, and it's not just one woman. It's a man and a woman. It's shared, it's parity in all the Academy. So it's in a way to change. In a way to change the mentalities, to change the way it used to be, and because what we want to. For cinema and in the world, is that the cinema represents more the society as the society is. So with female, with diversity, with a lot of different things that it's not just a cinema for all white men, So we have to change the way the cinema look and the way the cinema is.
And how do you go about changing the way French cinema is made, is structured? What do you do to change the culture of French cinema?
You go step by step, Even the Academy is right now 50 women and half women and half men, so that is very important because it used to be just men, or almost just men. So you have to change, and we have to change to accept to change. The way we look at the cinema. The way we consider the people who make cinema. We have just to accept that it's not just one point of view, but many points of view.
Now, last year, it's worth remembering, many were outraged, many, especially in the US and the UK, at the fact that Roman Polanski won 3 awards, including Best Director for his film J'accuse. I think it was called An Officer and a Spy in English. Polanski, who, it's worth remembering, he accepted his guilt for the statutory rape of a 13-year-old girl in the 1970s. Did you share that outrage? I'm assuming you did.
Well, I think, he did what he did, but maybe it's not the time right now after the Weinstein case and after Me Too movement and everything. I think it was not, the year to honor him. Not anymore. That's because it shows that the system is still working on in the way it was. So I think it was not the year to do that. And Adèle Haenel, when she left, the ceremony, I think she was perfectly right to do that.
And Adèle Haenel has said this year that she will not accept the offer of handing out awards at this year's César awards, or this tonight's awards rather. What should we read into that? Is this her saying that nothing's actually changed and there's still a long way to go?
No, I don't think so, but maybe she was not, because she knew that she was very important. What she did last year was very important, and everything was focused on her. So I think it's like, it's fair in a way. She doesn't want to be involved too much in the César ceremony, and I think it's good it's a good idea from her to keep away, from all this mediatic thing and everything. Maybe next year it will be better for her.
And going back briefly to the Polanski issue, there is a widely held belief here in France, isn't there, that someone's personal life should be separate from their artistic life. Is that something you largely agree with, or do you think that France is on the way to a more American model where people are essentially cancelled for things they do in their private life?
I think that we are in the way of changing that, a little bit, because it was like I don't think that we are going to in the American way, but we have to keep on between the both sides. One is very bad for the girls and for women and for these weak people. Okay, who are considered as weak, so it's very bad if you separate the author from the human being, But we have. They have to be straight in a way to consider the people, to consider, they have to be good, to respect the law, even as an author, But I don't think that we're going in the American way because it's too far away from our own culture.
But the Me Too movement is continually gaining more traction here in France. Do you think in the world of cinema there is a renewed understanding, awareness of the power dynamics that are at play in the world of cinema that don't always work in favour of women?
I think that is, what we saw in France, the Me Too movement was very strong in the society, but not in the cinema field. And yes, slowly, but right now, because we, with the collective 50-50 and everything, we start to talk about the bad things, from this cinema field. Yeah, it has to change a little bit, but it was slower than anywhere else. I don't know why.
Now, this year has been an extraordinary year for cinema, with cinemas across France still closed until further notice. A lot of big releases have been postponed. Some of them have gone out on streaming services. Not a huge amount of French films. Why is that, do you think?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question.
Films that we've seen released on streaming services during the pandemic, we haven't seen a lot of French films. Why is that, do you think?
I don't know, but the good thing is last year when the cinema were still open in France, we saw a lot of French film in the theater, and some of them, like Antoinette dans les Cévennes, I don't know if it's released outside of France, but abroad. But there are some very strong success in France with the French cinema. For on the streaming. Maybe, well, I don't know. I thought that Lupin, or even in therapy, which is more French, but is adapted from another of a different adaptation in the world. Maybe Lupin was. I thought it was a big success, but I didn't. I don't know. I don't know that much about the streaming cinema.
It's true. Lupin was a huge success on Netflix. It must be said. Yeah, I wasn't entirely fair earlier. And just lastly, we've got time for one last question. France's culture minister has said that cinemas aren't a priority for reopening, even when COVID cases start to come down nationwide. Is that something that worries you?
Yeah, well, it's always. I always worry when you can do whatever you want. Well, I mean, we want to go to see movies in the theater. We want to do that, and it's part of the French culture and on the French habits. And as far as I know, there were no cluster in cinema, so in theater.
Well, here's to hoping we get our cinemas back soon.
Okay.
Véronique Lebris, author and editor-in-chief of the woman-centric cinema site cinewoman.fr. Thank you very much for speaking to us here on France 24 today.
Thank you.